It's important to get to the bottom of what role money plays in your life if you want to change the way you're dealing with money. If you don't want to change, then it doesn't matter. My vision is really that the majority of Canadians are able to get unbiased financial advice without having to deal with a product salesperson that they can trust extremely cost effectively, and in fact get to a point where they're actually dynamically doing their own planning. Just the way we book our own trips and travel, that's the way planning is going to be. I think that the more knowledgeable and empowered a client is, the better decisions that they will make. And at the end of the day, then they will be in a stronger financial position, and isn't that what we are here to help them do?
This is the Personal Finance Show.
Hi, I'm Bo Humphreys, and this is the Personal Finance Show. Rona Birenbaum wants you to be financially successful. Rona started out in the financial services industry at a time when sales commissions were huge and the focus was on making money for yourself and not necessarily your clients. Rona decided that this was all wrong, and in the year 2000 she founded Caring for Clients, Toronto's best financial planning firm. At Caring for Clients, Rona and her team do something called Integrative Financial Planning. Sometimes referred to as holistic planning, it means looking at your whole financial picture. I think this testimonial from caringforclients.com says it best. Rona and the team at Caring for Clients helped us put together a plan that is far beyond financial advice. Their unique, holistic approach had us explore all aspects of our life to ensure that we had all the necessary support in place for our future. Over the years, Rona realized that paying for a full financial plan from Caring for Clients wasn't always in the financial best interest of prospective clients. So with the help of new technology, she recently created Viviplan.com, where you can still get a great financial plan, but for a fraction of the price of a full-blown Caring for Clients plan. I visited Rona at her office in downtown Toronto, where she shared her personal finance story.
So I remember my allowance and collecting it, and it really was all, for me, it was all about saving and hoarding and collecting.
Now why? I always ask this because how do we know to save and hoard? Like, what tells us to do that? Was it an influence, your parents, or?
I don't think so, because my sister spent every penny she got.
Yeah.
And we were getting allowance at the same time. And we were each given a piggy bank. It was a little white porcelain piggy bank. And I would take my allowance, which when I first started getting it was 10 cents.
Okay.
And I would drop it in the piggy bank, and it would make this awesome sound. Clink.
You like the
right?
sound.
I liked the sound.
Interesting.
I liked the sound, and then it's interesting because the more coins I put in, the sound would change.
The less of a clink, or
right.
yeah,
So
or a different clink.
It was a different clink, but a better clink.
So but that meant that to you.
I knew
more
that.
Associated, more money.
Yes. Now, so what's interesting is how, what I also learned early on, I think, about money, is that money was power. In that, use your power wisely.
Sure.
Because I discovered that by accumulating money, it meant that eventually I could actually buy something with it.
Whatever you want.
Well, actually, I didn't
Or
do
not.
that. Because my sister would spend all her money.
Yes.
Yes, I could buy myself something, and then she'd be envious because she couldn't, because she'd spent it on a chocolate bar every weekend, right?
Some kind of power, but you didn't want that kind of power over her?
What I would do, because I loved my sister, and I was the little younger sister,
Okay.
so I was always wanted her attention, and I wanted her love, and I wanted to be important, and when we would walk to school, she'd be with her friend, and she'd make me walk 3 steps behind, so it would look like I really wasn't connected to her at all.
You're the outcast.
Right. So being the little sister, I always wanted to win her affection. So when I would accumulate money, I would buy her things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a thing to do.
So I would buy her things, which of course would make her, happy to have received something. but then at the same time beholden in a way. You know, it was like the reciprocity principle very early on. So she was appreciative but annoyed at the same time because then she couldn't reciprocate.
Yeah, because she's spending all her money on her.
That's right. And so that was a pattern for a long time. That's not to say that I wouldn't from time to time treat myself, go to the corner store and get myself one of those grape Lolas, and that would be so sugary it would make you choke when you had it. But aside from that, I liked to accumulate, and then I liked to spend it on other people. That's always kind of been my modus operandi.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
And are you saying you still do that?
I actually did that up until, and I still do. Like I'm a giver by nature in all aspects of my life. My second husband, who's since passed away, he was much more of a bon vivant than I was. So I was all about accumulating and saving for the future and not spending frivolously or on things that you could get less expensively. And he was the opposite. He just loved to just always get the best and live life to the fullest. And it's not that he didn't save for the future. He did, but he did both. And that was hard for me. So over time, though, he wore me down.
They always win, don't they? The spenders.
Well, you know, and I started to experience what spending a little bit more freely felt like. And so what did I release the purse strings on? Travel with him.
Yeah, experiences.
Yes. And so I started to really understand how great it felt to relax a little bit, spend on something that I didn't really need. It wasn't, you know, food and shelter, but boy, it was life enhancing for sure.
Yeah.
So I live a much more balanced life now, which I think is healthier.
But that took a while to get to.
It's taken my whole life, you know, but I think I'm so glad that actually I got that perspective because in the work that I do, my ability to help people is much better now that I have a more balanced perspective personally.
Well-rounded,
Yeah, much more well-rounded, a respect for what money can do and the whole concept of life isn't a dress rehearsal and all of that. So enjoy the here and now, but respect the future.
Would you have approached a client differently, say, before this experience with your husband? Say, like, oh, you should cut down on your spending if they came to you like that?
Well, not really. It's actually not those people I think I would have advised differently. Because people that, I've never felt that there's anything wrong with spending a lot if you can afford it. And certainly I think people that spend frivolously and aren't saving enough for the future, they kind of know that. Yeah. So having that, you know, we got to... temper things a little bit. Conversation is pretty to be expected. Where it's come in more handy is with people that would have been me or I would have been them, which is to say they don't know how to spend. They're afraid to spend.
I see. Okay.
So what I do with them is I say, I was you.
Yes.
I was
absolutely.
you. And so I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And then I share my story and how I've managed to be a little bit more flexible and what it's added to my life without compromising my security down the road.
Yes.
So,
because oversaving can be an issue, right?
It can be. Oversaving can limit your life. It can, it could even be so bad as not visiting your children if they don't live near you very often because you don't want to spend money on a plane ticket. I mean, it can really get in the way of relationships. It can create stress in terms of family dynamics. Yeah. Especially if the unwillingness to spend is fear-based and not based in reality, right?
That's right. Where does this fear-based reality come from? Where does this is scarcity, right? Like we're not gonna have enough. What if we run out? Like, is it where you come from, your background, say like your history? Is that probably a big part of it?
I think that's probably the majority. Those are the most obvious ones to pin down on. Yeah. So my mother, for example, is your typical case in that regard. She grew up extremely poor, family with 4 children, all sleeping in the same bed, moved 16 times in 18 years, that whole story, lots of unemployment, lots of is there going to be food on the table, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's how she grew up. And then, of course, she met my father, a very stable engineer, and everything, and they bought a house and never moved in 54 years.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and in spite of the fact that I'm their financial advisor,
Yeah.
she still worries about running out of money. And is still very tight with purse strings.
Even though you can probably provide her with a projection
Yeah.
that says you're going to be fine for probably 50 more years.
It's a good thing I don't take it personally that she still doesn't believe it. And that's how you know that it's really not rational. It's
Even with the evidence in front of you.
The evidence is right there. And it's sad, kind of, in a way, because life will pass you by otherwise. So I think some of it is upbringing, for sure. I think that's got to be. Those are the obvious ones. The less obvious ones, I don't even think the individual might even know why. As I say, money is power. It's also control.
Okay.
So, what I've seen is I've seen relationships where, especially in an old-fashioned dynamic where the husband earned the money, the woman raised the family, and it can go either way these days. But essentially, whoever wasn't earning the money had to kind of ask for an allowance, as it were, in order to spend. Okay, so sometimes what I have seen is that the earning spouse says that we can't spend it because they really just want to control how the money is being spent. So I think there's fear, there's power and control, there's all sorts of things. So it's important to get to the bottom of what role money plays in your life if you want to change the way you're dealing with money. If you don't want to change, then it doesn't matter.
Would people come to you looking to change? I feel like you can't change someone unless they're ready. Or help them change, because you can't, you literally can't change anyone. They have to be able to change themselves, but they need your help. Is that what you get, people coming in? Do you get some people like that looking to...
Most of them not.
No, yeah.
But we get there anyway.
Yeah, so you're able to use their whatever their motivation is to come in. We want to get it in order. We want to have a clear picture, or whatever it is. We want to make sure we're doing everything the right way. And then you're able to open the conversation with them? Sometimes
it's as simple as asking the question, what's getting in the way of you doing that? Or what's the obstacle? Yeah, what's the obstacle?
Yeah.
They know there are obstacles, and sometimes it's just stopping and thinking for a minute, well, what is it? And waiting, and then just sitting and being quiet.
Yeah. Yes, that's a really good advice. I need to do that more. So let's go back to you. Now, obviously, you're quite educated in the language of finance right now, and relationships, because that's what it's all about, right? And people's relationships with money. Were you interested in it before? Say I'm assuming you went to school for this?
I did not go to school for this.
Oh, there you go.
So I had to go to university. From the time I was 3 or 4, yes, I started getting an allowance, and I was also told at the same time that I would be going to university.
Okay. I do like to drill down on that, because did you also want to at that point? Or
well,
did you just
I've always
know you
enjoyed
had to?
School.
Yeah, okay.
So the idea that this was something that was going to happen didn't bother me.
Okay.
I was excited by the prospect. My sister, on the other hand.
No, okay.
There's a theme running, the difference between my sister and I.
Absolutely, siblings.
I love you, Natalie. Anyway, so she was not of that mind, and she would love to have not gone to university.
Yes.
But she did, and my dad actually tutored her all the way through.
Okay.
And she's glad that she did. So I always wanted to go because I love to learn. I've always been a kind of sponge for learning.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't know what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be when I grew up at whatever age I was, 17,
Who really
16.
does? Some people are lucky enough, I guess, but do they really?
Yeah, I remember at that age saying to my mom, God, I wish there are some kids that they just know they want to be a doctor or they want to be a lawyer. Oh, that would be so great if I just knew, you know?
But maybe they are a doctor for 10 years and then realize, I want to do something else, but feel trapped.
Oh,
right?
entirely.
So there could be that, too. I think we need to take our time, but also need to open to change and open to differences. I feel like this maybe happened to you. What did you take then?
So I ended up starting in the psychology program.
Okay.
Because one thing I always knew is how much of an interest I had in people.
Yes.
So I loved the human mind. I liked people, and I just intuitively liked helping people. So I thought, well, there's your obvious route to helping people. So I started in the psychology program. And first year for me was hard for two reasons. For one, the program itself, although most of what you learn in first year is quite foundational, and but a lot of it was sociology and psychology and all that stuff. But it was also hard because I just didn't want to be with people my age. In other words, the whole social scene was not a fit for me. It wasn't in high school, and it didn't get any easier in university. I just wanted to go and learn.
Yeah.
And not have to, I don't know,
socialize.
Be that age. Yeah.
No, it's really, some people look at, there's two ways to look at school. It's a place to go and learn, and it's a place to go and learn about life.
Right.
And, hopefully you can do a little bit of both, and not completely one or completely the other, because the complete learning means you, like yourself, had a terrible time, or not a terrible, but it wasn't as enjoyable as it would have been. And then if you do the opposite, well, then you flunk out or you don't learn anything, and it was a waste of money.
I found another way.
Yeah, okay, so what did you do?
So what I did was I decided in my mind that I wanted to leave full-time study and start working. I just wanted to get out into the work world and study at night and go to do the adult night program.
I'm putting your dad in my head right now, and he's saying,
that conversation was not good.
No way.
And that's what he said. And so I said, way. And I think he was afraid that I just wouldn't finish.
Sure.
So here's power of money again, money and power. He said to me, all right, Rona, if that's really what you want to do, you can pay for your education. Okay.
And you said?
You have a deal.
You have a deal. Did you have a plan at that point, or did you have money?
No, but I had to get. Well, I had whatever I'd saved from, because I'd been working summers part-time since I was like 15 years old.
Yeah, we skipped over that.
Yeah,
I skipped the school,
Baskin Robbins, and I did all
retail,
those
all the stuff,
all that stuff,
building your people skills, which then maybe made you want to do the psychology. You had to figure it out somehow.
Let me tell you a quick funny story about my first job at Baskin Robbins. I lasted 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right? And I lasted 2 weeks because they did a cursory amount of training, and there I am, and I'm scooping ice cream, and I'm scooping scoops. And the owner would pop in every once in a while, and he saw me serving customers and said, oh, no, you're making the scoops way too big. And he says, let me show you. You have to make them this big and weigh them. And here's the weight, and this is what I expect. So he showed me what the weight was for one scoop, and then I'd put it on a cone. I couldn't possibly serve a scoop that small.
They would have laughed at you or said, this is it?
Well, yeah, and they did.
They did that.
So while he was there, I had to serve like that. And so I would serve, and people would kind of look at the cone and then look at me and say, you got to be kidding.
What have I done to offend you?
I know. And so thankfully, he wasn't there all the time, but I knew I was doing something wrong. Like I knew I was giving more ice cream than I was supposed to, and I thought, well, maybe he's going to walk in and see me, and the ice cream police will come. I don't know.
You were a nervous wreck.
I was so stressful. So I said, this is not for me.
No. Well, looking over your shoulder, even the possibility of that is just no way to work.
And it just felt wrong. It just felt wrong.
What you were doing too.
People, they were not getting good value for their money.
I feel like he missed the point of a business. It's I doubt that little bit of ice cream was going to kill him on the inventory cost.
So. And look at the employee he left.
Yeah.
He let go or lost, I should
right?
say. So I had saved up money from all of the jobs I'd had and whatnot. So I had a little bit there so I could pay, I remember, my first semester's tuition.
Okay.
And the deal that my dad made, he wasn't completely harsh. He said that he would pay for my books. Okay. We all know how expensive books are.
Yeah, they can be, yeah.
And he let me use the car to get to and from class, because class was from 7 till 10 at night.
And so you were going to school. Where did you grow up?
In Toronto. Right. So I went to York University.
Okay, so you were near there, or close enough to drive?
Well, yeah, it was a half an hour drive, 40 40-minute
This
drive.
is another good frugality point, is live at home if you can.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was never presented as an option that I would do otherwise.
Okay.
I never discovered that it was an option.
Okay.
So he said, here, I'll let you take the car. So anyway, I needed to find a job. And I did a couple of things administratively here, there. And then in my second year or third year, because what I was doing essentially 2 or 3 classes a semester at night, year-round. So summer through summer
really?
And all of that.
Okay.
So in the end, it took me 6 years to do the 4-year degree.
And working in the day.
And working in the day. So what I did is, at the same time, when I switched to nighttime, I decided I wanted to do a different program. And I was dating this terrible guy at the time, but the good thing he did was suggest that I try Business 101. Because he was in the accounting program.
Yeah,
and he thought, well, maybe you'd like this.
Yeah.
Right? So I did Business 101. It was like, oh, the birds were singing. All of a sudden, I said, well, this is interesting.
Would it take you through all of the parts of the business? Like
I don't remember
briefly?
Exactly, but it was kind of touching on business.
Marketing, HR, operations, all that stuff, and accounting, of course, finance.
All of that. It was just a general kind of
Did
thing.
you like all of it, or did you focus on one
I just
bit?
remember loving all of it, and just thinking, okay, if I could do more of this kind of stuff, then that would be really great. So I switched programs from psychology to business.
Do you remember the motivation? You just weren't into the psychology
No,
anymore?
it was just,
Was it too something?
It was too theoretical for me.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they weren't, because you wanted to work.
Yeah.
And it's funny, learning about business, or especially how a business runs, it does feel like you're actually learning about it and not just talking about what, Immanuel Kant said, or, whatever.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And
although it's a good thing I learned Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because I knew to use
that's
it all the
important
time.
too. Yeah, it does. It comes up in business all the time, in personal finance specifically, right?
Yes.
And so, you're in business. You just took one Business 101, but
yeah, then I just switched, and I had to choose what my major was going to be, so I chose marketing.
Okay.
Because that sounded like human behavior.
Okay, yeah.
So it was kind of the intersection of business and human psychology. And then I wanted a more full-time job, so I ended up applying. A friend of mine in class worked at a credit union in marketing.
Okay.
And he said, maybe they need some tellers, so I went and I got a job as a teller. And that was the beginning of my financial services career, and I've been in financial services ever since.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So just almost randomly starting as a bank teller.
Yeah, because it was either going to be. I thought I was going to be, I don't know, marketing Pampers for Procter and Gamble. And that was going to be the path.
Which you might have.
Yeah.
So, but spoiler, you didn't. And the teller job, was that just during school then, or did you continue?
I continued, and I ended up working my way up through that organization over 5 years. Ultimately, I ended up running a couple of branches.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did everything.
So teller to what's an intermediate before branch
cash
manager?
I managed the cash team, all the tellers, and then I was a deposit advisor, and then a loans officer, then an assistant branch manager, and then a branch manager.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it tough being a branch manager of a bank? Or
well, it was a credit union, which is...
It's different?
Well, it was back then. I'd like to think it still is now.
Yeah? What are do you have some key, just quick differences?
I would just say, the customers are called members. They're not called clients or customers. And it's not quite the same profit-driven model. I mean, there has to be the financials have to be there, and there needs to be growth, and it needs to be a sustainable business. But generally, they're not publicly traded companies with shareholders to report to, and so that leads to different kinds of behavior for sure.
Yeah,
and a different focus.
I've never really looked into that. So, executives and stuff like that, are probably still well compensated, but maybe not as crazy as the banks.
Oh, not even remotely. Not even remotely.
Oh, think about credit unions. Would you still recommend somebody if they're thinking of a bank versus credit union? What would you say if somebody was trying to make that decision?
In terms of where to work?
No, where to put their money at this point. They're starting out as I just either came to Canada or I wanted to set up something for my kids. I don't have a bank and I don't care. Is there a benefit?
Well, what I would say is...
I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I want to answer that properly. There's two things that are important. One is what's going to be the best and most cost-effective and convenient product, and then what's going to work best for that individual, either in terms of convenience, accessibility, etc. Banks, the traditional banks are not high on my list. Like, they're not the ones that kind of jump up
Sure.
for me.
Okay.
A lot of the virtual banks are, and I would say credit unions as well. But the thing with a virtual bank is you still kind of need that traditional bank setup to even link to some of these online banks.
But like the credit unions you can do that independently.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, and like Tangerine, for example, it's independent. That's my only bank, and even though it's owned by Scotiabank, I still feel like they kept the old values of ING Direct, which is where I started, and so I still think that they're a good choice. But I do like what you said about the values of credit unions and how they're not completely profit driven, and I can see that being a big thing for somebody.
And the other thing is, many credit unions their membership is built around some commonality.
Okay.
So
like teachers,
or the credit union I worked for originally was a credit union that was just for Ontario Hydro employees.
Okay.
It has since become Meridian.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, but back then it was the membership was exclusively Ontario Hydro employees. So what that meant is that the staff really understood everything about what it was like to be part of that organization. We understood the compensation, we understood their benefits, we understood that we better staff up on Thursdays because they were paid every Thursday.
Okay, I see.
And then there's also cultural organizations, like there's the Ukrainian credit
That's
union.
That's right, in Bloor West Village, where I lived there for a couple of years.
Yeah, so there can be a community feel.
That makes more sense. Yeah, I mean the biggest one I'm aware of, not here, but in Ontario that I know of, just because they were able to name an arena, is the Windsor Family Credit Union, WFCU. It's huge. I mean, if you can sponsor an arena, that's pretty good, right? And so I didn't think about what that meant. I just thought of them as another local bank, but I guess maybe they're more specialized in people in the Windsor area, or maybe there's even other qualifications for membership. I don't know that.
I would think so. And where sometimes these things all of a sudden become really meaningful is, let's say there's a credit union in a small community, and that small community has one or two primary employers, and let's say there's a plant shutdown. If I was running a credit union that catered to a group that was experiencing, say, a crisis that would have financial implications, then really what that organization should be doing is finding a way to step up and support their membership and find creative ways, both in terms of the financing help they might need, bringing people together and figuring out how you can have a job fair or whatever the case may be. But whatever is common about that group of members allows, I guess, you as a service organization, and I see credit unions as service organizations. I see every business should be a service organization because their customers are people.
Yeah, that's right.
But I just think when you have that little bit of universality, it means that you can actually do something really special and meaningful for everyone.
You know, I just got this picture of Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life. Like, are credit unions the closest thing we have to the old savings and loan that they used to run?
Yeah, it could be.
Right?
It could be. And I think that it would be even more so if there was a little bit more collaboration. And I think that part of the reason maybe that there isn't, and I've been outside of that world for a while, so I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it's still, there's been a lot of provincial distinctions, provincial associations, et cetera, and so, and that's not unique to that industry nationally. There's all sorts of barriers provincially that I think interfere with the ability to collaborate and really kind of have more of a movement and more philosophy that could be, I don't know, easier to roll out and communicate.
Yeah. So you're not with the credit union anymore, as you said. So you left there after, you said, 5 years? So where did you go next?
So I decided that I wanted to be more entrepreneurial and I wanted to work for myself.
Well, you got your degree.
I did, but I got my degree while I was still at the credit union, in a marketing degree.
And then you just stayed to work there.
Yeah, because I was enjoying what I was doing, and I was learning, and so on. So I decided that. But what I liked most about all of the things I did at the credit union was the client-facing work. I mean, I loved managing a team and all of that. But what I didn't like was my primary responsibility as a manager was to actually meet certain metrics. Open a certain number of accounts and process
even
a certain
if
number
though
of
it was a
money.
credit union,
Absolutely.
you still had metrics, not probably as
Yeah.
crazy as we're hearing today, as open 1 million credit cards or upselling to people who don't need stuff, but you still have you're trying to make some money.
And that's exactly it. And I didn't find that particularly inspiring.
Okay, yeah.
So I got I decided I wanted to go into investment management, really only because I'd asked my father for advice and said, what do you think I should do? And he said, well, my investment advisor seems to really enjoy what she's doing. And she was one of the few women in the field back then.
Okay.
And he says, why don't you talk to her? And I did. And she was very encouraging. So I got my securities license, I did my exam, and I joined one of the independents at the time that existed, that was Midland Walwyn.
Yeah,
And
blue chip thinking.
Blue chip thinking, yeah. So I got in there, I joined their rookie program. I lasted 2 years before I was recruited by Wood Gundy.
Okay.
And the reason why I moved to Wood Gundy was because I thought that the dog-eat-dog, sales-driven culture was unique to Midland Walwyn and not to the industry as a whole.
But you were proven wrong? Or?
Oh, yes. And then, of course, I was introduced to the idea of conflicts of interest in proprietary products and incentive for selling in-house products and all of that, and it just seemed even worse to me.
So can you give us a date for this?
Yeah, so I was at Midland Walwyn from 96 to 98, and at Wood Gundy between 98 and 2000.
So, what were the products like at this time? Is it mutual funds only?
It was, I was using mutual funds. I was building stock and bond portfolios.
Okay, you could do custom portfolios
absolutely.
for people?
Oh, yeah.
And were mutual funds sort of new in the 90s?
In the late 90s, they were on a real roll. They were new in the early 90s, I would say.
Okay, yeah.
And in the late 90s, mutual funds were a cash cow for the industry.
Yeah.
Because you had, as I would listen to my cohorts in the bullpen, they'd say, oh, yeah, I had another call with a GIC refugee. It's great. She's got $500,000 in GICs, and I got her into DSC mutual funds and made a $25,000 commission. And I'm saying, oh, my God, is this the industry I've joined?
Yeah, can you talk about that for a sec? So you would get paid immediately?
If you sold a deferred sales charge mutual fund, you'd get a 5% commission immediately.
Immediately, and on the condition that if they tried to take the money out within 7 years, is that pretty standard?
Yeah, it was 6
that they
at
would
the
have
time,
to
7,
pay a declining value of 5% or less, depending on how many years is left. I've talked about deferred sales charges before, but I don't know if I've talked to anyone who's actually benefited from them. Did you? Not, I'm not trying to make you into a villain or anything.
No.
Because that's how it was at the time.
Yeah. So what I would say about that is there were a couple of things. It was actually the way we were trained.
Yeah.
So we were actually trained to deliver kind of the following message around the DSC model. Because keep in mind, one of the things that it's important to know the history of mutual funds is what came before the DSC model.
Yes, what did come before?
What came before the DSC model was that it was really only a front-end model.
Okay,
so you pay a commission to buy a mutual fund.
Upfront
you know how much
commission.
that was? Yeah.
No way, how much?
9%.
So you pay 9%, what, like out of pocket?
The client would be out of pocket. So you invest $100,000, 91 gets invested, 9,000 was the commission to the broker.
Well, interesting. Okay.
Now, it was tough to sell. Canadians weren't all that keen on that kind of pricing.
Well, because what were GICs getting them at the time, though? Back in the early 90s, they would have been in the 12%, 10-12% range for sure. Amazing.
Because I remember in 2001, my mortgage was 10%. My mortgage rate was 10%.
And then, so they were about...
So GICs must have been 12 or 13, right?
And so... If someone's getting 12%...
No, GICs would have been 8.
Okay, it's
8.
If
you're being lending out at 10, that's right.
But let's just go with 10% for now, because they were probably at some point. Someone said 18 to me recently.
Yeah, that would have been the 80s.
Yeah, exactly, in the 80s. And so, why would they pay a 9% commission to get what potential returns? Could you promise any returns?
No.
What would people expect? Though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just before we get to that,
please, go ahead.
So then what the mutual fund industry came out with was they needed another pricing model because that was just an obstacle, a too sizable obstacle. So they came out with the deferred sales charge model, which is okay. we're not going to charge the client anything.
Yeah.
Right, so that eliminates the obstacle from the client standpoint. But of course, the broker still wants to get paid.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you're not going to get paid 9%, but you're going to get paid 5%.
Yeah.
And so long as the client stays in there for at least 6 years, they'll never have to pay that commission. So when I remember I went through my rookie training, it was, okay, this is how you position this with the client. Because the alternative was a front-end charge of 2%. It was actually 2% to buy and 2% to sell, or 2% for switches.
And
this is
that's on top of the probably 2.5 MER that was there, right?
Yes,
yeah.
that's right. The purchase and sale commissions would be on top of the MER.
Wow, that's a different world.
So actually, what was being presented to the client at the time was, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Client, here is this great investment option, professional portfolio management. You have a couple of options. You can purchase it and pay 2% to buy and 2% to sell, or you can purchase it, not pay anything. All of your money is fully invested and growing. And so long as you keep it for at least 6 years, it was 6 years at the time, in some cases 6 years, you won't ever have to pay that. And by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you can switch from this fund to that fund
within our company.
within the group of funds, and so there's plenty of flexibility.
It actually sounds like a good deal, actually. Not,
yeah.
You know, I'm only comparing it to today, but yeah, that
at
actually
the time,
it was better.
Now, the piece that was missing.
It pains me to say this.
Yeah,
but yeah.
the piece that was missing that most advisors did not communicate at that time.
Okay. Yeah.
And that I always did was, oh, and by the way, the fund company is going to pay a commission of 5%.
Okay.
All right, of which I get a portion, and that's how I'm paid for advising you.
Yes.
And if you sell within the first 5 or 6 years, what you have to pay to sell is really the commission that I received up front.
Yeah.
So I'm determined to give you value for that 5%. But that's the way it works, and those are your options. What would you prefer?
I think I did a comparison in a blog post to a car rental. I think it was very loose, like if you brought the car back early, you'd have to pay more.
That kind of thing.
It doesn't make sense in anything else but compared to what was previously there. And in a way, I wish I would have done more research into where it was before, because comparing that to today, of course, where everyone's giving everything away,
egregious, yeah.
It really does. But you're right. The only bad part about any of this is if the lack of disclosure, if there was any. Yeah. Otherwise, it was just, hey, if it's all up front, this is what you're paying for, this is what you're getting. Even today, if you're paying 2.5% mutual fund fees, as long as you know that, that's all that I care about.
Exactly. And that's why, when the regulators were doing all their research, a very large proportion of Canadians were saying, well, I don't pay anything for investment management.
That's tough.
Right? So anyway, I mean, there's an interesting history there. But what's also interesting is that very early on, before I left Wood Gundy, I remember going to these seminars, and there was one person that came from the U.S. talking about, the future of financial advice and all the rest of it. And they were talking about this whole fee-based model that was showing up in the U.S., and you'd be really forward-thinking if you hopped on the bandwagon. And I looked at this, and I thought, well, this makes a whole lot of sense. And so, you mean I can sell this fund front-end and not charge a commission?
Sounds great.
Yeah. So when I left Wood Gundy and I moved my practice and started caring for clients, that was the model I right from the get-go, was front-end zero, and the compensation was fully disclosed to the client, that there's a management fee, and of that 1% is coming, or 0.5% is all of that.
Yeah.
So and that was actually crazy, because essentially what I was doing was I was giving up 5%.
To get one?
To get one. And when you got the 5% in the past, you got 5% and then you got a reduced trailer.
Okay, what does that mean?
So, for example, if you have ABC fund, and let's just assume that the management fee, the MER, is the same for both funds. Okay, so say 2% just to keep it simple.
Yeah.
All right, if you bought it DSC, deferred sales charge, advisor gets a 5% commission. Of course, they share it with the house, but let's just keep it simple for now. So they get a 5% commission, and then of the 2%, they would get 0.5% per year to service the account.
Okay.
Okay. Now, on the other hand, if you do it front-end zero, there's no commission, but there's a 1% service fee.
added on to the 2?
Nope.
No, just included. Oh, okay. Instead of the 0.5%.
Right.
Okay.
So after about 8 years
Yeah.
or 9 years, you're, as the advisor, you're equal. But not many advisors wanted to wait 8 years to get the same level of compensation.
Could you see the future of that this is all going to blow up?
I didn't see the future. I just thought that it was wrong and that the fee-based model was right, and it was what I could live with.
And you could still make a living.
It wasn't easy,
Yeah.
and you know what was crazy was that my timing was terrible.
Oh,
Because it was 2000.
okay.
So what small book of business I had built at that time
Yeah.
got a little bit smaller with the downturn in the tech bubble.
Yeah,
And then trying to build a business at that time after the tech wreck,
boy, yeah.
Right? So not only was I not doing the DSC, but it was just a slow. So it
you
would have
made
been
a-
tempting to
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
but
that's why everyone's in these sales commission-based jobs in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, for some of the things that are being sold out there, you have to not think about the effect on the client. You have
Yeah.
financial products are. I think they're very unique, right? In that it's not like you're selling somebody a T-shirt, right? You're selling somebody something that's
Yeah.
gonna grow or not gonna grow or whatever.
I had a very sad conversation with an advisor recently, and it was in a social setting, so it was inappropriate for me to actually berate the person.
Okay.
And it's just not the mindset and the headspace I wanted to get in at that moment. But he was telling me about how he builds portfolios, and he was describing what he does and the fee he charges and all the rest of it. And I asked the question, well, that doesn't really actually sound optimal to me. You know, I think you're missing out on X, Y, or Z that would really enhance the performance of the portfolio.
For your client.
For the client, yeah. And he said, it's good enough.
Ugh.
It's good enough, and it's a lot less work for me. And
Oh.
I almost, so, you know, I had a choice. And usually, I have to tell you, I have spent the last 20 years being very outspoken about all of this.
Yes, okay.
Right? And being independent allows me to do that without repercussion.
Good.
But sometimes like that day, I just didn't feel like getting into a fight. I think I'd had a long week. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But normally my next question would be, and how do you live with yourself?
Yeah.
Right?
Like if he was
at the
unaware.
end of your career,
Yeah.
what are you going to, and when you have a child one day, this is awful, when you have a child one day, and they want to know what difference you made in your career, or how you've helped people, like what kind of answer are you going to
Yeah.
have, you know? But, you know, I just wasn't in the mood.
But the answer is they don't think about these things, do they? They just don't think that way.
Well, I think the reality is they don't care, and it's not important. And if it's good enough for them is good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I would pose
Right.
the same question to somebody selling guns or working in a
Right.
cigarette
I
factory,
guess so.
you know, or anything that
Right.
that is against my values.
That's right.
Right, and
Yeah.
so
Oh, but you know what? It's okay because it makes us look so good eventually, you know?
well, eventually, yeah. But you were sort of, I mean, almost, I'm not going to say pariah, that's the word that came to mind, but at the time, you were making them look bad.
No.
Were you?
In the early days, no, because it really wasn't well understood. And in fact, consumers didn't like the idea of actually paying a fee and seeing the fee.
Okay.
Like, they really didn't get it. It took a very long time.
I would ask, how hard was that? Or is it still hard?
It's not hard now.
Okay.
It's what people are looking for now.
Sure.
To the point where we're actually at capacity in my core business right now.
This is it's a percentage of assets under management?
And it's also we don't always manage money for people.
yeah.
We always just charge a fee for a plan.
fee, yes.
Right? So you know, I'm sure you've talked to lots of fee-only
Absolutely.
planners.
Yeah.
So that's really how people come to us.
But do you also manage assets?
Only if somebody's done some planning.
You have the ability to do that.
We have.
Yeah.
And then only if they really need us.
Okay.
And if their account is large enough because we give a whole lot of value.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
it has to be a good fit both ways.
I like that you have that standard
Yeah.
because if you're spending time managing somebody's assets, like if it's just $10,000,
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is that it's not just you're managing the money, you're overseeing the money, you've got liability associated with
Okay,
that,
yeah.
but then they get ongoing financial planning
as part of
as
that.
part of it,
Yes.
and that's very time consuming.
Okay.
So
and you wouldn't charge a flat fee in that case?
No, because we've already done that.
Yeah.
And so now then the asset under management pays for the whole kind of full service.
And this is the generally accepted dual model today. Either you charge a flat and then you don't sell products.
Right.
Or,
that's the majority of fee-only planning.
Or assets under management. So like the robo-advisors, for example, are doing usually 0.5% of assets under management, plus all the MERs. That's the way that they go, and they only charge 0.5 because they're not necessarily going full service.
Right. I mean, they're comparing themselves
they're not
to
really.
one. Well, no. I mean, I actually don't think it's a very good deal
that's a good
for
point.
larger accounts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you have a very small account, try and get somebody to even deal with you.
Yeah.
That's another issue. That's a problem, systemic problem.
Well, yeah, and there are companies that are working on that, of course. And, I think just the more we focus on democratization of personal finance, the better it'll get. But, yeah, it's good to know what you're getting, right? I mean, if somebody... So, yeah, let's keep going in your trajectory. So you're on your own now. Is there a name of the company you want to share at this time? Or
yeah,
no?
so I moved the investment dealership. I put my license with Queensbury Strategies.
Okay.
And
that's where we are right now.
We are sitting in the Queensbury head office.
And that's the last. This is like the third email address that I saw for you.
Right. So my fee
this
only,
is the original.
My fee only planning firm is Caring for Clients.
Okay,
I set that up the same time I moved my investment practice to Queensbury.
Okay, same time.
So Queensbury is kind of my back office for the investment side, and Caring for Clients is my wholly owned fee only planning company.
It's you and just you, or was you just you at the time?
It was me and my partner Clifford.
Okay.
He came from the fee only planning world, so we started it together.
Okay.
He ultimately became my husband, and then passed away 5 years ago. So that was quite the journey. But we started it, and now it's myself. I've got a team of 7, and so there's 8 of us.
Okay.
And we take care of, about 350 families. And one of the reasons why I started the next company, which is Viviplan, the fintech, is because we just started having to turn away a lot of people.
Yes.
And also discovered, there's just... most people can't afford our fees or really shouldn't be paying that much for what they need.
And so that's why you're turning them away? Is that the main reason?
Both reasons.
Both reasons. And so, what would be a reasonable amount if someone came to you to be worth the value? Is there a minimum?
There's no asset minimum because planning is just on a fee-for-service basis. So our plans start at $4,500.
Yeah, so you want to have some money to pay that.
Well, you want to have at least income, and you have to have...
$4,500.
Yeah, well, and you also need to have... we need to see that you will get that money's worth. Your planning needs are complex enough.
I guess there isn't a specific calculation that you use to determine that. I was wondering if that was the case. Like for our $4,500 value, if they don't have at least this much, then it's not worth it.
Look, they could have no savings, but if we see that by working with them, we could really springboard them.
Good point.
Financially. Yeah. Then we'll say, you know what, it'll be the best $4,500 you ever spent. So it's a bit of a judgment call from our standpoint. It has also to do with how motivated somebody is, right, to actually, take their decision-making in another direction. But in some cases, their planning needs are so simple that they'd be better off served by the new company because we do that same kind of comprehensive planning for $800. Mm-hmm. And that's... obviously a whole lot less than $4,500. And often what I say is, the best piece of financial advice I'm going to give you right from the get-go is don't pay us $4,500. Go to Viviplan, and you're going to get the same quality advice for $800.
Yeah, so it's nice to have
the option.
But it's still you, right?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No.
It's your company, and I feel like your essence is
yes.
But you've been able to program all of that into something.
That's right. It's a combination of technology and people.
Yeah, okay.
So we have planners, and they are working with our technology, and they are communicating with clients by email and virtual meetings and that kind of thing. And more technology gets introduced, so that's how we're able to do it cost effectively.
So you're able to create the foundation of this and oversee it,
That's right.
But because it's not using your time, which is at this point
other
very,
than
very
running
valuable.
it and looking for investors. Other than
Yes.
that,
yeah. But that's the overall,
Yes.
the running of the company. But the operation of the company, you can sort of leave that and have it for.
They're just different team
It's
members,
just different.
right? Like caring for clients, there's myself and 5 other planners. And at Viviplan, there's myself and 2 other planners. And that'll continue to grow as well.
But it's the infrastructure, the reduction of costs in that makes you able to.
That's right.
To have it last.
I mean, my vision is really that the majority of Canadians are able to get unbiased financial advice without having to deal with a product salesperson that they can trust extremely cost effectively, and in fact get to a point where they're actually dynamically doing their own planning. Just the way we book our own trips and travel, that's the way planning's going to be. Now, every once in a while you need to speak to a travel agent.
Sure.
Just like you'll need to speak to a financial planner, but I'm telling you, that's
Yeah,
what we're moving. That's where we want it to see.
That's how I'm setting up my coaching system. I just want to help people get their basics in order, and then once they're in order, then they can sort of monitor it themselves. And then maybe they use the Vivid Plan to create a more robust plan than I would have done in a couple of minutes.
Or
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or it could be like a full-scale comprehensive planning update.
Yeah.
And then they can check in with you for the coaching, the counseling, whatever the case may be.
From my perspective, where I add value is just having the discussions, because that's the first step, right? I mean, that's the first thing that you will do with them, right? Before you get into all of the mechanics and the details and all of that stuff is, hey, let's talk, right? As we discussed at the beginning of this interview, and it's so much about that. And so, how much psychology did you take then?
Well, I did 1 year in school.
1 year.
And the last, I guess, 25 years in life.
That's right. I'm just wondering if the psychology...
Well, I can say the informal education I would have, I should be quite serious about this, is my business partner and late husband was a teacher and a counselor by nature. And so I really learned at his side.
Yeah, okay.
So I did a lot of the technical planning work, and he would do the coaching, counseling, and manage, kind of conversations he would have with clients would blow me away.
Well, you've been through several financial crises.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of like let's say 2008? I'm sure you had a client or two that came to you and said, "What happened?" and I lost all my money. Like, how does that conversation go? And how difficult is that to have? Or were you just ready?
Well, I don't think you can ever be ready for something like that, because that wasn't just an ordinary bear market. That was a financial crisis.
Of course, yeah.
So what I can say is we were really focused at that time on our own clients, and I actually remember when the shit was hitting the fan, at least the first shoe was dropping, because I was at a economics session at Harvard's reunion, because my husband was a Harvard graduate.
Okay.
And we were listening, and as this dean of economics was talking, the news was starting to fly, right?
Wow, okay.
And the markets were diving, and it was the Friday, it was the 3 days forward was going to be an election debate between McCain and Obama, and McCain was saying we got to cancel the debate. This is a crisis of national concern, and so we have to reschedule the debate. And Obama says we're debating. I remember that, and so I'm thinking I am in Boston. I need to get back to Toronto.
Yeah.
So get back to Toronto, and the first thing we did was email essentially all of our clients and say it's time to rebalance your portfolio.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, the equities were down 25%, not all equities, but the markets were down 25%. So I said, okay, we have an asset allocation.
Yeah.
We're light on equities right now. We should be rebalancing. That's the conversations that we were having.
Okay, so that would that then take advantage of the rebuilding of the market? Is that why the rebalancing is to be done?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to own equities and they're 25% cheaper, it might be a smart thing to do to buy more.
Yeah.
And traditionally, historically that's been the case. And if you're buying good quality investments, then absolutely. And not all clients took us up on that recommendation, and a percentage of them did. But then the second shoe dropped in the first quarter of 2009, and so it got even uglier.
Which you don't know when it's going to stop.
No, you never know where the bottom is.
In hindsight, we do.
Absolutely. So we suggested rebalancing again in early March of 2009.
And
even
I'm just
fewer
curious
people
about
took
people's reactions to this.
Most people at that point then said, "Nah, I'm good. I think we'll just stay pat." Nobody sold.
Because I don't know that people realize how much, you might be a fan of Carl Richards. I don't know.
Yeah, I love Carl
and
Richards.
He says the financial advisor planner is the person between us and stupid, right? And his training, which I think you can take if you're a financial CFP in the States or maybe even Canadian, I don't know, is all about emotions and relationships, isn't it? And people, I don't think they see the numbers, they see the investments if you're managing them, or they see the plan, but they don't realize how much relationship management this is.
And I'm proud that nobody sold, and I'm proud that some clients rebalanced, and I'm proud that some people just kept with their monthly automatic contributions.
Sure.
I didn't mention those. I thought, maybe they'll just forget they're investing on a monthly basis. And I understand people's reticence, because I remember the cover on Time magazine was the breadlines from the Depression saying, "Here we are again."
Man, yeah.
How does that not freak you out?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of communication happening at that time, which I think was essential.
But now you have the benefit now of seeing the results of that rebalancing.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it was a positive move.
Especially
those who double.
Oh my God, they recovered so quickly. It was crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you were saying, there's something you were already invested in, so you already thought about that was the right place for you to be. So it's not like those were investments that weren't good, and now you have the option to buy them at a huge discount.
I know,
it
because
just makes so much sense.
It does make sense, and the way I ask that question is just to have people listen to themselves. Is when they say, "Oh no, I think I'll just keep what I've got."
Yeah.
And so what I say is, rather than saying, "Okay, I'm being satisfied with that," I say, "Okay, you want to keep what you own. Why do you want to keep what you own?"
Yeah.
And they say, "Well, I'm not going to sell it now. It's going to recover." Really? Is it going to recover a lot? Well, yeah, it's down 30%. Wow. Well, where else can we get a 30% return right now?
Yeah.
If you want to own it because you're confident in its ability to recover, and I agree, Mr. and Mrs. Client, well, then why wouldn't we be buying more?
Well, because you would have sat with them and determined
The
a
asset
specific
allocation.
asset allocation. I think people forget this, right? So let's say it was, what would be a good one right now?
50-50.
50-50, like bonds.
Yeah, fixed income and equity.
Fixed income, which is bonds, and equity, which is stocks, right?
Yeah.
So you already agreed that this was their risk tolerance. And now the stocks are way down, and they're saying, I'm going to stick with this because why? It does nothing. Like, there's the stupid for you. The emotions come into play. Yeah. Meanwhile, if you just, and as you know, because you've been through all of these cycles, if you stick with the asset allocation, it all kind of works out, right?
It does.
It can be that simple.
It can be, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's also complicated.
No, but it is. No, it is that simple.
If the thing that makes it complicated is the emotions, isn't it?
It is, and I explain over and over again, look, the industry tries, I think the industry in general wants to look smarter than the client, so that there's a power imbalance, so that the client will need you. Now, I have a different point of view. I think that the more knowledgeable and empowered a client is, the better decisions that they will make. And at the end of the day, then they will be in a stronger financial position, and isn't that what we are here to help them do? When we talk about investments as part of the financial planning process, it takes us a while to get to an actual analytics of their portfolio or recommendations. We'd spend a whole bunch of time with huge amount of education. And one of the things we start with is saying, there are 3 basic components to investment success. Very simple. The first one is your chosen asset allocation, on the premise that what you own is quality. Okay, so we're not talking about speculation, crap, Bitcoin, all that crazy stuff. We're talking about quality investments. So the asset allocation you choose, number 1. Number 2, what you do during times of market dislocation, right? Which is when your 50-50 becomes 75-25. What are you going to do? All right, so whether or not you rebalance has a major impact. The third one, cost. Cost is a factor. Keeping costs low and making sure you're getting value for cost.
So your returns aren't eroded by fees.
And I spent a bit of time on fees because people actually I think this pendulum swung just a bit too far on the fee thing, where there's this automatic assumption being made that if your fees are lower by 0.5%, you will automatically get that 0.5% in better performance.
No.
And that's only true if you're comparing apples to apples.
Yes.
Same product. Okay, so, and generally speaking, that is not the case. So the asset allocation is actually going to have a bigger impact, frankly, than fees, so long as you're not in high-cost segregated funds as compared to an ETF. I mean, that's such a big chasm that's cost will have an impact there. So, but generally speaking, if you're getting value for fees, right? Are you getting, good risk-adjusted returns? If your fees include things like tax planning and financial planning and all of that, are you getting that?
Yeah.
Or are you paying for it but not getting it, or are you getting it? Like, are you becoming wealthy and more secure as a result? And so, so fees are important. But I would say not fees in an absolute sense. I would say fees in terms of value for fees paid.
We can determine that from the financial planner fees, like in terms of services we're getting.
Yep.
How do we determine value from, say, a robo-advisor's fee? How do we know, like, is there a way to figure that out? Like that 0.5% that we're paying.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess the way you would compare, so this is how you justify it, because sometimes we'll talk to clients and say, well, should you be a do-it-yourself investor or use a robo-advisor?
Sure.
Because if you want a low-cost ETF portfolio,
you can make one.
So you can buy the Vanguard Balanced Fund and be done with it. And why would you pay an extra 0.5%? And frankly, even the ETF portfolios within the robo-advisors are typically more than what a standalone balanced ETF would
maybe
be. Maybe
0.8
exactly,
max,
versus 0.26 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you say, but if you go the DIY route, these are the things you're going to have to do. Okay? You're going to have to open the account. You're going to have to do this. Nobody can make a recommended portfolio. The portfolio is not going to be automatically rebalanced, although with an ETF, balanced ETF, yes, it is.
It's rebalancing itself.
Is
that what you're saying?
Yeah,
okay.
so I have a hard time finding where the value in the 0.5% is.
Rebalancing was, I would say, would be one of the major ones. But if you're talking about an ETF that balances itself. Yeah.
But what I can say is that some of the robo-advisors are starting to put out some very good content, some very good educational content, resources, and so on.
It's true, too.
So, and I think that they'll continue to get better at that as they manage more money, because there will be a demand, because more balanced ETFs will come out.
They're going to eventually catch up to you.
Yeah.
In terms of the value you provide.
No way. Impossible. Impossible, because
they'd have to start charging more.
Yeah, they'd have to start caring more.
Yeah. And the game for the low fees is volume. And as you said, about 350 families, is that? And that's probably, I'm guessing you're at your max.
We are for now,
yeah. So, just as a good point, are you taking more clients right now?
Not at Caring for Clients right now. We're on a bit of a hiatus for about 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
But certainly a Viviplan. I mean, Viviplan has the capacity to deal with hundreds of thousands. So
great. So where do people go to find out about it?
Viviplan.com.
Viviplan.com. VIVI plan.com. And are there any other websites, Caring for Clients? Should they go check that out?
They can always see what we're up to at Caring for Clients. It's caringforclients.com.
It's a good name. It tells you wanted to tell people what you're actually interested in.
What we stand
for. Yeah, that's good. So Viviplan and but what did you say it started at in terms of a fee for Viviplan?
It's very simple. It's an $800 flat fee for a comprehensive financial plan. Cash flow, estate, tax.
Get your plan.
Get your plan.
And would that includes telling them if they want to invest themselves or
educating what their options are.
You're going to take care of them.
We sure are. Yeah. We'll make sure they're in good hands one way or another, no matter what they have to do.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for inviting me here for this interview. This is good because it's important to talk about the value of all of this stuff. And everyone's on autopilot. They listen to the banks, and the banks are not there for us. Maybe I'm learning now. Maybe the credit unions are more so.
It's a step in the right direction for sure.
But no, this is a good thing you're doing, and thanks for being one of the pioneers to step out of it, the DSCs.
Thank you. Thank you, and it's a good thing that you're doing. You're doing some great work.
Thanks so much.
If you like this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, on Apple Podcasts especially, give me a review or a 5-star rating. If you're already a subscriber, I'd love to get your feedback on this episode in my new Facebook group. To find the group, go to Facebook and search for The Personal Finance Show. Once you're approved, you'll be able to interact with me and previous guests of the show and other fans as well. And you can always reach out to me via email at bo@bohumphreys.com. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Personal Finance Show. Next week, my guest will be Robert Gignac, host of the Money, Motivation, and More podcast and author of the Canadian bestseller, Rich is a State of Mind.